Animals like you don't belong here. Connor Whitaker's black belt snapped as he stepped in, chest puffed, crowding Jordyn Brooks on the mat. This gym's for real fighters, not handouts, hoping no one notices. He shoulder-checked her hard. His heel ground into the mat like he owned it. Laughter echoed from the other guys, sharp, mean, approving. "Let's spar," Connor said, smirking. "I'll remind everyone where you belong." Jordyn didn't move, barefoot, hands taped, eyes steady. She stayed quiet, not because she was afraid, but because she'd been trained to end violence before it needed applause. Connor never noticed the way the head coach froze mid-step, because the girl he was about to toy with was the only person there authorized to end his career with one call. Sunlight filtered through Iron Forge martial arts front windows, casting long shadows across the pristine mats. Jordyn Brooks paused at the entrance, her worn duffel bag hanging from one shoulder. Inside, students in crisp white uniforms clustered together, their laughter bouncing off the mirrored walls. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the glass door. The bell chimed, softly. A few heads turned, conversations dimming for a moment before resuming with renewed energy. Jordyn approached the front desk, where Marcus Whitaker sat shuffling papers, his polo shirt stretched tight across his chest. "Can I help you?" he asked without looking up. "I'd like to register for classes," Jordyn said quietly. Marcus glanced up, his eyes scanning her quickly. "Have you trained before?" "Yes," Jordyn kept her answer simple. "Where?" He pulled out a stack of forms. Master Kim's before it closed. Marcus's pen paused. "Never heard of it." "Well, we do things differently here at Iron Forge, more structured." He slid the papers toward her. "Fill these out. You'll need a uniform. We sell them here, no outside gear allowed." As Jordyn filled out the forms, she noticed a tall teenager in a black belt demonstrating kicks to a group of younger students. His movements were flashy, drawing appreciative murmurs from his audience. "That's my son Connor," Marcus said proudly, following her gaze. "He's our youngest black belt. Started training here when he was 6. He raised his voice. "Connor, come meet our newest student." Connor turned, his confident smile never wavering as he jogged over. Up close, his belt was pristinely tied, the embroidered stripes gleaming. "Welcome to Iron Forge," he said, looking down at Jordyn. "Always good to see new faces trying martial arts." "She's trained before," Marcus added, "at some place called Master Kim's." Connor's eyebrows rose. "Never heard of it. Must be one of those strip mall dojos." He chuckled. "Don't worry, we'll fix any bad habits you picked up there." Jordyn said nothing, remembering her grandfather's words from countless training sessions. Let them talk. Words show you who they are. After changing into her new uniform, Jordyn joined the other students on the mat. Connor was leading warm-ups, calling out commands with practiced authority. As they moved through stretches, his gaze kept finding her. "New girl," he called out suddenly, "your stance is all wrong. Here, let me show you." Before Jordyn could respond, Connor was behind her, grabbing her shoulders. "You're too tense. Relax." His grip tightened slightly. "Unless you're scared." Scattered laughter rippled through the class. Jordyn kept her expression neutral, even as Connor adjusted her position with unnecessary force. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her mind. "Observe first, react last. Let them show their hand before you show yours." "There." Connor stepped back, smirking. "Much better. Though you might want to work on your confidence. Can't learn if you're afraid to speak up." More laughter. Marcus watched from his office, nodding approvingly at his son's leadership. The class continued, moving through basic techniques. Jordyn executed each move precisely without flourish. She noticed Connor watching her, his expression shifting from amusement to something else, perhaps irritation at her calm focus. During partner drills, Connor made a point of circling near her group. "Remember," he announced loudly, "martial arts isn't just about technique, it's about spirit. Some people have it naturally." He threw a spinning kick that drew admiring gasps. Others need extra help. The message was clear in his tone. Several students glanced at Jordyn, then quickly looked away. "Good first class," Marcus called out as they finished. "Connor, maybe you can give our new student some special attention next time. Show her how we do things here at Iron Forge." Connor's smile widened. "Happy to help. Always good to start with the basics. Really basic basics." Jordyn bowed out with the rest of the class, feeling Connor's eyes on her back. The other students gave her a wide berth as they headed to the changing rooms, already falling into whispered conversations. In the locker room, she carefully folded her new uniform. Her grandfather had warned her about places like this, where respect was a weapon and hierarchy was everything. "Watch how they treat those they think are beneath them," he'd said. That's when masks slip. As Jordyn shouldered her bag, laughter echoed from the main room. Connor's voice carried clearly. "Did you see how scared she looked? Some people just aren't cut out for real training." More laughter. Marcus's voice. "Now, son, be nice. Everyone has to start somewhere." "Sure, Dad. I'll be real nice. Show her exactly what she needs to learn." Jordyn walked out, her steps silent on the padded floor. She felt Connor's gaze follow her to the door, heavy with assumed authority and dismissive amusement. He'd already decided what she was, another prop in his carefully constructed kingdom. Her grandfather was waiting at home, ready to hear about her first day. She could already picture his knowing expression when she described the class. He'd seen it all before, had taught her precisely for moments like this. "Remember," he always said, "true power doesn't need to boast. Let them underestimate you. Let them think silence means weakness. Just watch, learn, and wait." Light streamed through Iron Forge's high windows, casting golden rectangles across the training mats. Students trickled in for open mat, their voices echoing off the mirrored walls. The formal structure of classes gave way to casual energy as teens grouped together, stretching and chatting. Connor Whitaker held court near the main mat, his black belt perfectly centered over his crisp uniform. A cluster of students hung on his every word as he gestured dramatically, describing his latest tournament victory. "So, this guy from River Valley thought he had me," Connor said, demonstrating a block with practiced flair, 6 feet tall, built like a truck. "But you know what? Size doesn't matter when you've got real skill." Appreciative nods followed. A younger student raised his hand. "Did you use that spinning hook kick?" "Better," Connor grinned. "I let him think he had control. That's advanced strategy, playing with your opponent's mind." His eyes drifted across the room, landing on Jordyn. She sat alone in the corner, methodically stretching her shoulders. Connor's grin widened. "Speaking of strategy," he said loudly. "Hey, new girl, you've been pretty quiet all day." The room's atmosphere shifted. Conversations died down as heads turned toward Jordyn. She continued her stretch movements unhurried. "You know," Connor continued, walking closer, "open mat is the perfect time to get some real experience. How about we spar?" He spread his hands. "Just for fun, of course. I'll go easy on you." Snickers rippled through the watching students. Near the office, Coach Harlan looked up from his clipboard, frowning slightly. "Connor," the instructor called out. "Remember, she's new." "It's just friendly practice, Coach Harlan." Connor interrupted smoothly. "How else will she learn?" "Unless," he turned back to Jordyn, "unless you're not ready for actual sparring." Jordyn finally looked up, her face calm. She studied Connor's stance, noting his weight distribution, the subtle swagger in his shoulders. Her eyes tracked the exits, the gathering crowd, the phones already appearing in eager hands. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her memory. Never fight for pride, but never back down from necessity. Okay, she said quietly, standing up. Connor blinked, clearly expecting more resistance. He recovered quickly. Great. See Coach Harlan, she wants to learn. Coach Harlan sighed. Gear up properly. 2-minute round, light contact only. Of course, Connor said, winking at his friends. Super light, educational. As Jordyn pulled on her headgear, she heard whispers behind her. $10 says she cries. Nah. 20 says she quits before the bell. Connor bounced on his toes in the center of the mat, playing to his audience. Ready when you are, new girl. Don't worry, I'll show you how we do things here. Jordyn stepped onto the mat, remembering countless sessions with her grandfather. No spectators, no mirrors, no polished floors, just concrete and truth and lessons learned the hard way. Ready? Coach Harlan raised his hand. Begin. Connor opened with flashy footwork, circling left, then right. His first few strikes were deliberately sloppy, light taps to her headgear, small kicks that barely touched her legs. Come on, he taunted. You can at least try to block. He flicked another strike past her guard. Or is this too advanced? Jordyn moved backward, absorbing each strike, cataloguing his patterns. Connor followed, growing bolder with each step. Maybe we should start with basics, he said loudly. Like how to make a fist. More laughter from the crowd. Jordyn kept moving, measuring distance, noting how he telegraphed his spinning kicks, how his guard dropped after combinations. Her grandfather's lessons surfaced with each exchange. Watch their breath, he taught her. Everyone has rhythm. Find it before you break it. Connor's attacks came faster now, his showmanship shifting to frustration at her continued silence. You can't just run away, he snapped, launching another spinning kick. This is martial arts, not hide and seek. Jordyn saw the tension in his jaw, the slight labor in his breathing, pride making him sloppy, arrogance leaving gaps. Timing, her grandfather always said, is knowing when to wait and when to move. The bell rang sharp and clear through the gym, and Jordyn, for the first time that day, stepped forward. The gym's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the mat as Connor and Jordyn circled each other. Sweat darkened patches of Connor's uniform, his earlier showboating taking its toll. Students pressed closer, forming an eager ring around the action, their phones held high to capture whatever came next. Is this all you've got? Connor's voice carried a new edge. Just backing up and playing defense? He punctuated his words with quick jabs that Jordyn deflected. Her movements economical and precise, Coach Harlan watched from the edge, arms crossed. His expression shifted from mild concern to growing curiosity as he studied Jordyn's footwork. Connor pressed forward, each strike becoming less theatrical and more forceful. Come on! He feinted left, then launched into a spinning kick aimed at her midsection. At least try to fight back. The kick never landed. In the space between heartbeats, Jordyn moved. Her pivot was so clean it looked rehearsed, her timing so precise it seemed inevitable. Connor's momentum carried him past her like a bull charging a matador. Before his brain could process the miss, Jordyn's sweep took his legs out from under him. The impact of Connor's body hitting the mat echoed through the suddenly silent gym. A few gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone's phone clattered to the floor, but Jordyn wasn't finished. As Connor tried to roll away, she transitioned smoothly into a joint lock. Her grip found pressure points that most recreational martial artists never learned existed. The hold was textbook perfect, the kind of technique that spoke of thousands of repetitions, of muscle memory burned into bone through years of practice. Connor's eyes widened as he felt the inexorable pressure. This wasn't the flashy competition holds he was used to, where opponents played for points and referees stepped in early. This was something older, something that carried the weight of actual combat in its execution. Tap. Connor's voice cracked. When the pressure didn't immediately release, he slapped the mat harder. I said tap. Coach Harlan burst into motion, rushing forward. Break. Break now. Jordyn released the hold instantly, rolling backward to her feet in one fluid motion. She stepped away and bowed formally, face composed as if this were any other training exercise. The silence in the gym grew heavier. Students who had been recording lowered their phones slowly, as if unsure what they had just witnessed. The usual post-sparring chatter was conspicuously absent. Connor scrambled up, his usual grace abandoned. Red splotches colored his neck and face as he tugged his uniform straight. That was... He swallowed hard. The mats are slippery. Someone must have tracked water in. A younger student near the front whispered, but he didn't slip. He quiet. Connor snapped, making the boy flinch. Coach Harlan cleared his throat. That's enough for today. Good control, both of you. His attempted neutrality fell flat as his eyes kept darting between Connor's disheveled state and Jordyn's calm demeanor. Connor's friends shifted uncomfortably, none meeting his eyes directly. The unspoken hierarchy of the gym had just been upended, and no one quite knew how to react. Whatever. Connor forced a laugh that sounded more like a cough. Nice move. Got lucky with the timing. He ran a hand through his sweat-dampened hair, trying to project casualness. We should do this again sometime. You know, when the mat's not so... Jordyn didn't acknowledge the excuses. She bowed once more to the instructor, then turned and walked off the mat, her footsteps silent on the padded surface. Her expression remained neutral, but there was a weight to her silence that felt more eloquent than any victory speech. Connor's forced smile couldn't hide the dangerous glint in his eyes as he watched her go. His hands clenched and unclenched at his sides, knuckles white with suppressed emotion. The gathered students began to disperse, their whispered conversations creating a low buzz of speculation. Some replayed their videos, analyzing the takedown frame by frame. Others huddled in small groups, reconsidering everything they thought they knew about the quiet new girl. Coach Harlan stood rooted to his spot, a troubled look crossing his features. He'd seen enough matches to know the difference between luck and skill, between a flashy performance and efficient combat application. What he had just witnessed belonged firmly in the latter category. Connor's father emerged from the office, drawn by the unusual quiet. "Everything all right out here?" "Fine," Connor said quickly, too quickly, just showing the new student some basics. His voice carried a tremor that belied his casual words. The assistant owner's gaze swept the scene, noting his son's disheveled appearance and the lingering tension in the air. His expression hardened as he watched Jordyn collecting her water bottle from the corner. Near the lockers, two senior students whispered behind their hands. "Did you see how fast?" "Shh. Connor's looking this way." The gym's usual energy had transformed into something uncertain and electric. Equipment lay forgotten on the edges of the mat. The wall clock ticked loudly in the strained atmosphere. The fluorescent lights in the locker room hallway buzzed with an electric hum that made skin prickle. She changed quickly, methodically folding her uniform and tucking it into her duffel bag. The rest of the students had cleared out, leaving behind the sharp scent of sweat and deodorant. Her muscles felt loose, warm from the workout, but her instincts had sharpened, raising her focus. The hallway's shadows shifted, and footsteps approached. Multiple sets, deliberately unhurried. Connor appeared at the corridor's end, flanked by Ryan Knox and Justin Reed. His gym uniform was still rumpled from their sparring match, but he'd fixed his hair, regaining some of his usual polish. Ryan wore a smirk that matched Connor's stance, while Justin hung slightly back, his eyes darting between Connor and the floor. "Hey there, superstar." Connor's voice had shed its public performance tone. It was lower now, colder. He positioned himself to block the exit, shoulders squared. "We need to talk about what happened out there." Jordyn adjusted her bag strap, scanning the space automatically. 3 teenage boys, 1 exit, concrete walls. The supply closet door stood ajar to her left. A security camera blinked lazily in the corner, its red light steady. "That little stunt you pulled," Connor continued, taking a step closer. "That's not how things work here." Ryan snickered, crossing his arms. "Yeah, someone needs to learn the rules." "See, you're new," Connor's words dripped with false patience. "So maybe you don't understand yet. But there's a certain order to things at Iron Forge, a respect for tradition." His pause carried weight for people who've earned their place. Jordyn remained still, her breathing controlled. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her memory. "Stillness isn't weakness. It's the moment before the strike." "And you?" Connor's eyes narrowed. "You forgot your place, tried to make me look bad in front of everyone." "Like some kind of show-off," Ryan added, eager to pile on. Justin shifted uncomfortably, looking down the hallway. "Connor, maybe we should shut up, Justin." Connor didn't even glance his way. He took another step toward Jordyn, close enough now that she could smell his mint gum. "You might think you're special because you got lucky with one move, but trust me, this is my gym, my father's gym, and we protect our own here." The fluorescent light above flickered, casting strange shadows across Connor's face. His usual charm had evaporated, revealing something harder, uglier, underneath. "So here's what's going to happen," he continued, voice dropping even lower. "You're going to know your role. Stay quiet, train in the back. And if anyone asks about today, you tell them I was being nice, helping the new girl feel welcome." His lips curved in a smile that never reached his eyes. "Because if you try to show me up again—" Footsteps echoed from the office area, accompanied by Marcus Whitaker's voice discussing class schedules with someone. Connor paused, jaw tightening at the interruption. Jordyn used the moment to step forward, her movement smooth and unhurried. She didn't drop her gaze from Connor's, didn't flinch or rush. Her grandfather had taught her that predators chase what runs. Connor's hand shot out, not quite touching her, but hovering near her shoulder. "We're not done here, Connor." Justin's whisper carried an edge of warning as the footsteps grew closer. With visible frustration, Connor lowered his hand and shifted aside, just enough to let her pass. But as she drew even with him, he leaned in close, his words meant for her ears alone. "This gym protects its own," he repeated softly. "Remember that before you try anything else stupid." Jordyn walked past them, her steps measured and calm. She felt their stares on her back all the way to the exit, heard Ryan's muffled laugh and Justin's quiet protest. The evening air hit her face like a wake-up call as she stepped outside. The parking lot was nearly empty, sunset painting long shadows across the asphalt. She took her time walking home, letting the tension drain from her shoulders with each block. Her grandfather was waiting on the porch when she arrived, his weathered hands wrapped around a steaming mug of tea. One look at her face, and he knew. He always knew. "Come sit," Elias Brooks said, gesturing to the empty chair beside him. His voice carried the quiet authority of someone who'd seen too much to waste words. Jordyn settled next to him, laying out the day's events in precise detail: the sparring match, the technique she'd used, Connor's performance beforehand, and his true face after, the threats in the hallway, coded but clear. Elias listened without interruption, but his jaw tightened as she spoke. The grip on his mug grew white-knuckled at certain parts. When she finished, silence stretched between them, broken only by distant traffic and cicada songs. "You controlled the situation," he finally said, nodding slowly. "Kept your head, used what I taught you, both in technique and temperament." "Yes, grandfather." "Good." He set his mug down carefully. "Now you'll need to keep training, harder than before, and keep detailed notes, dates, times, exactly what was said and done. Document everything." Jordyn nodded, understanding the wisdom behind his words. That night, in her bedroom, she pulled out a small notebook from her desk drawer. The pages were crisp, waiting. She wrote the date at the top, then Connor's name, followed by a precise account of the day's events. Her handwriting was neat, unhurried, each detail captured with the same calm focus she'd shown on the mat. Sunlight streamed through Iron Forge's high windows, casting long shadows across the polished wooden floors. Students crowded the mat area, their animated chatter bouncing off the mirrored walls. Coach Harlan stood at the center, holding up a stack of bright yellow flyers. "All right, everyone, quiet down," he called out, waiting for the noise to settle. "I've got an exciting announcement. The Regional Teen Championship is coming up in 3 weeks at Central Arena." The room exploded with excited whispers. Connor, standing front and center, straightened his black belt with practiced casualness. His usual group of followers clustered around him, already discussing his guaranteed victory. "This is a prestigious event," Coach Harlan continued, his voice carrying over the buzz. "Top competitors from 5 states, multiple divisions, great exposure for the gym." He started passing out registration forms. Sign-ups need to be in by Friday. Parent signatures required for everyone under 18. When the stack reached Jordyn, she took a form without hesitation. Connor's eyes narrowed as she began filling it out, his carefully casual pose stiffening slightly. "Well, look who's feeling adventurous," Connor drawled, loud enough for nearby students to hear. "That's really brave of you, considering your experience level." The last words dripped with mock concern. A few students shifted uncomfortably, remembering the sparring incident. Others who hadn't been there looked confused. How could a white belt challenge their champion? Coach Harlan approached Jordyn's corner, his expression troubled. "Jordyn, could I have a word?" She followed him to the edge of the mat. His voice dropped low. "Look, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but this is a serious competition. The skill level is very high, and with your current rank—" "Let her compete," called out Jake, the white belt she'd trained with earlier. "We've all seen what she can do." Other voices joined in, mostly from students who'd witnessed her takedown of Connor. The pressure built until Coach Harlan visibly wavered. "Fine," he said finally, "but you'll need to demonstrate proper control during preparation. Tournament rules are strict." Connor's laugh cut through the moment. "Don't worry, Coach. I'll help her train, make sure she understands the proper approach." The next few days transformed the gym. Practice matches increased in intensity. Students paired off for endless drills, perfecting competition legal techniques. Connor held court at the center of it all, performing flashy combinations for his admirers. During one rotation, he deliberately paired himself with Jordyn. "Remember," he announced loudly, clearly performing for the watching students. "Control is everything in competition. We can't have any dangerous situations." His eyes locked onto hers meaningfully. They bowed in. Connor immediately launched a series of aggressive strikes, forcing her to defend. His technique was technically perfect, designed to impress. Each attack came with commentary. "See how I maintain safe distance." Another strike. "Notice the controlled power." A sweep attempt. This is what judges look for. Jordyn absorbed, redirected, waited. When she finally moved, it was with precise economy. No wasted motion, no flash. She caught his kick, used his momentum to unbalance him, and took him down with textbook form. Connor jumped up immediately. "That's exactly what I mean about dangerous responses," he said through clenched teeth. "You could really hurt someone like that." The whispers started that afternoon. Connor's friends spread stories about Jordyn's lack of control during practice. They talked about liability concerns just loud enough to be overheard. Some younger students began avoiding her during rotations. That evening, Jordyn found her grandfather in their small backyard tending to his vegetable garden. His hands moved steadily through the soil, each motion deliberate despite old scars crossing his knuckles. "Tournament politics already starting?" he asked without looking up. Jordyn sat on the garden wall. "How did you know?" Elias straightened slowly, brushing dirt from his palms. "Because some things never change. People who worship belts and trophies hate anything that threatens their system." He settled beside her, his weathered face thoughtful. "You know, I fought for 20 years after Vietnam. No rings, no referees, just concrete basement and warehouse floors. You never talk about those days," Jordyn said quietly, "because there's no glory in that kind of fighting. No medals, no applause." He flexed his scarred hands. "But there was truth. When someone went down, it wasn't because of politics or points. It was because they were beaten, plain and simple." Standing, Elias moved through a simple stance sequence. Despite his age, each position flowed perfectly into the next. Tournaments aren't just about skill. They're about who knows who, about whose daddy owns what, about whose style makes the school look good. Jordyn watched his movements, recognizing the fundamentals he'd drilled into her since childhood. "So why let me compete? Because sometimes," he said, completing the sequence, "the truth needs witnesses." The next morning, Jordyn stood at Coach Harlan's desk, registration form extended. The office was quiet compared to the practice noise outside. Her hand remained steady as he reviewed the paperwork, even as his frown deepened. Connor appeared in the doorway, his own form already approved. "Big step," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Hope you're ready for real competition." Coach Harlan glanced between them before reluctantly adding Jordyn's form to the stack. The sound of the paper settling seemed unusually loud in the small office. Through the window, students continued their tournament preparation. Phones recorded fancy combinations. Friends cheered impressive aerial kicks. The afternoon sun cast everything in warm, competitive glory. Jordyn bowed slightly and turned to leave, feeling Connor's stare boring into her back. Her grandfather's words echoed in her mind. Sometimes the truth needs witnesses. The sports complex loomed against the sky, its brick facade already crowded with arriving competitors and families. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed above the competition area where blue mats stretched across the gymnasium floor. The air smelled of disinfectant and nervous energy. Jordyn stood beside her grandfather in the registration line, her gym bag slung over one shoulder. Elias's presence felt like a fortress behind her, solid, unwavering. She wore her plain white gi, freshly pressed with no patches or decorations. "Remember," Elias said quietly, Quick entries, clean exits, no showboating. Yes, sir. Jordyn's voice was steady despite the flutter in her stomach. The main entrance doors burst open as Connor's entourage arrived. He strode in, wearing Iron Forge's premium black G, his father Marcus close behind. A cluster of students and parents followed, carrying water bottles and energy bars. Connor's laugh echoed across the lobby. "Looking good, champ," someone called out. Connor raised his hand in acknowledgement, every inch the conquering hero. The preliminary brackets were posted on a large board. Competitors gathered around, checking positions and schedules. Jordyn found her name in the middle bracket. 3 matches minimum to reach semi-finals. "Good morning, everyone," the head referee's voice boomed through the PA system. "First round competitors to your designated areas. We start in 15 minutes. Jordyn's first opponent was a tall girl from a downtown dojo. They bowed in, circled briefly, then engaged. The girl attacked with textbook combinations: front kick, reverse punch, roundhouse. Jordyn slipped the strikes, waited for an opening, then moved. One clean entry, sweeping the girl's lead leg while controlling her upper body. They hit the mat together, Jordyn already securing position. The submission came quickly, applied with precise pressure. The referee called it. Total match time 47 seconds. Winner, Jordyn Brooks, the scorekeeper announced. A few scattered claps mixed with confused murmurs. On the adjacent mat, Connor was putting on a show. He launched spinning kicks and jumping techniques, each move calculated for maximum visual impact. His opponent, a nervous-looking boy in a blue belt, barely managed to defend. When Connor finally landed his signature tornado kick, the crowd erupted. "That's how it's done," Marcus Whitaker shouted, leading the applause. Between rounds, competitors milled around the warm-up area. Jordyn stayed close to Elias, stretching quietly. Connor passed behind her, shoulder-checking her hard enough to disrupt her balance. "Enjoy it while it lasts," he muttered, voice low and ugly. "You won't finish this tournament." Elias stepped forward, but Jordyn touched his arm. "It's fine, grandfather. Just words." The second round brought stronger opposition. Jordyn faced a stocky brown belt who tried to muscle through everything. The girl grabbed Jordyn's gi, attempting to force a throw. Jordyn didn't resist. She redirected the energy, used the girl's grip against her, and transformed the attack into a smooth counter. Another clean submission, another quick victory. Phones appeared in the crowd now, recording her matches. Whispers spread about the mysterious white belt who fought with unsettling efficiency. Some viewers recognized her from viral clips of the gym incident. Connor continued his campaign of dominance, each victory more theatrical than the last. He played to the cameras, pointed to his supporters after particularly flashy moves. The judges nodded approvingly. Marcus Whitaker worked the crowd, shaking hands with officials between matches. During the quarter-final break, Elias's eyes narrowed. He watched one of the senior judges lean close to Marcus, their conversation hidden behind hands. Money didn't appear to change hands, but something passed between them. A nod, an understanding. "Stay focused," Elias told Jordyn. "Control what you can control." The quarterfinals tested Jordyn's patience. Her opponent was skilled and aggressive, forcing her to work from disadvantaged positions. She remained calm, weathering the storm until opportunities presented themselves. When the opening came, she capitalized immediately. The finishing sequence was textbook: trap the arm, apply pressure, maintain control. Her opponent tapped quickly, respect evident in their post-match bow. Connor's quarterfinal bout ended with a spectacular spinning heel kick that wasn't quite as spontaneous as it appeared. His opponent seemed to lean perfectly into the technique's path. The resulting knockout brought the crowd to their feet. Did you see that? Marcus boasted to anyone within earshot. That's real martial arts right there. 4 competitors remained. The semi-final brackets would be announced after lunch. Jordyn sat with Elias in a quiet corner of the cafeteria, sipping water and analyzing previous matches. She'd escaped the early rounds without injury or exhaustion, exactly as planned. "You're doing well," Elias said, his voice carrying decades of earned wisdom. "But remember what we discussed about tournaments. Politics matter more than performance," Jordyn recited softly. "Stay ready. Trust your training." The lunch break wound down. Competitors began drifting back toward the competition area. Jordyn stood, rolled her shoulders, and checked her GI one last time. The semi-final pairings would be posted soon. She bowed to her grandfather, then walked toward the locker room to freshen up before the next round. The hallway echoed with her footsteps, most spectators still finishing their meals. Hope flickered cautiously in her chest. Not hope for victory necessarily, but hope that skill and discipline might speak louder than politics. Just this once. In the quiet corridor, Jordyn couldn't hear the soft click of her locker being opened, couldn't see the shadows moving quickly behind its metal door. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Jordyn approached her locker during the midday break. Her muscles felt loose, warmed from the morning's matches. The hallway smelled of metal and sweat, mostly empty while other competitors grabbed lunch. She spun the combination lock, the clicks echoing in the quiet space. Something felt off before she even opened the door, a subtle wrongness in the air. When the locker swung open, her heart dropped. Her carefully packed gym bag lay upended, contents scattered across the metal bottom, wraps unrolled like fallen streamers. Her water bottle had been emptied, leaving everything damp. But worst of all, her mouthguard was gone. The custom-fitted piece she'd saved 3 months of allowance to buy had vanished. Jordyn's hands remained steady as she examined the mess, though her pulse quickened. A movement caught her eye. Something scratched into the wooden bench beside her locker, 5 ugly letters carved deep into the grain. Her throat tightened as she read the slur. She took 3 careful breaths, just as Elias had taught her. Then she documented everything with her phone. The overturned bag, the missing mouthguard, the vandalized bench, each photo clear and time-stamped. The tournament director's office was down the hall next to the gym entrance. Jordyn knocked firmly. "Come in," a voice called. Inside, 2 officials sat behind a folding table, covered in brackets and scoring sheets. They looked up with mild annoyance at the interruption. "Yes," the older one asked, already turning back to his paperwork. "I need to report vandalism and theft from my locker," Jordyn said, keeping her voice level. She held up her phone. "I have photos. That's a serious accusation." The younger official frowned. "We'll need to investigate. Fill out this incident form and we'll review it after the tournament concludes." "The finals are in less than an hour," Jordyn pointed out. "I'm missing required safety equipment that was stolen. You should have secured your belongings better," the older official said dismissively. "We can't delay matches for missing items." The door opened behind her. Connor stepped in wearing a concerned expression that didn't reach his eyes. "Everything okay in here?" he asked smoothly. "Dad sent me to check on the bracket postings. Perfect timing." The younger official smiled. "We're just about to put them up. Why don't you help us carry these out?" Jordyn stood very still as Connor gathered papers, brushing past her with exaggerated care. His cologne was expensive and too strong, marking his territory even here. "Good luck out there," he murmured, just loud enough for her to hear. His smile was razor-sharp. She followed them out to the main gym where a crowd had gathered around the bulletin board. The semi-final brackets went up to scattered cheers and groans. Jordyn scanned for her name, but before she could find it, a hand touched her shoulder. "Ms. Brooks." A third official she hadn't seen before gestured to a quiet corner. "A moment, please." Her stomach clenched. Elias's warnings about tournament politics echoed in her mind. The official held a clipboard, his expression professionally neutral. "We've received a serious conduct violation complaint about your behavior today." "What complaint?" Jordyn asked. "I'm not at liberty to discuss the specifics or the source," he said, "but the allegations are concerning enough that we have to take action." Across the gym, she spotted Marcus Whitaker watching, arms crossed. Coach Harlan stood nearby, suddenly fascinated by his phone screen. "What allegations?" Jordyn pressed. "I haven't violated any rules." "That's not for you to decide," the official said firmly. "The tournament committee has reviewed the complaint and found it credible. I'm afraid you're disqualified from further competition today." The words hit like a physical blow, based on an anonymous complaint without any evidence or chance to defend myself. The committee's decision is final. His tone suggested further discussion would only make things worse. A burst of applause drew her attention. Connor stood in the center of the mat, hand raised in victory. The announcement echoed through the speakers. Due to disqualification, Connor Whitaker advances to the finals by default. The crowd's cheers felt like salt in an open wound. Jordyn watched Connor soak in the adoration, his father beaming proudly nearby. Coach Harlan finally looked up, met her eyes for a fraction of a second, then quickly looked away again. The humiliation burned in her chest, hot enough to scorch away words. She turned and walked off the competition floor, back straight, eyes forward. Her feet carried her through the lobby and out into the parking lot where the autumn air felt shocking against her flushed skin. Elias waited by his truck, reading her expression instantly. Without a word, he took off his worn leather jacket and draped it over her shoulders. The familiar smell of leather and aftershave wrapped around her like armor. "They were never going to let you win," he said quietly. "Not here. Not playing by their rules." Jordyn nodded, throat too tight for speech. Through the glass doors, she could see Connor, with his arms raised triumphantly, surrounded by admirers. His victory would be recorded, celebrated, shared on social media. Her disqualification would become a whispered warning to others who didn't know their place. The jacket felt heavy on her shoulders as she watched Connor bask in unearned glory. All her training in restraint, all her grandfather's lessons about discipline and patience suddenly felt insufficient against the weight of systemic injustice. The quick thrill of that first sparring victory seemed very far away. Now the kitchen clock ticked steadily in the Brooks home, each sound marking time like a metronome. Steam rose from 2 untouched mugs of tea on the worn wooden table. Jordyn sat with her hands folded, replaying the day's events while Elias listened, his weathered face giving nothing away. "They had it planned," she said, her voice steady despite the anger simmering beneath. "The locker, the complaint, all of it. Connor knew before I did. You could see it in his smile." Elias's fingers traced an old scar on his knuckle. A habit Jordyn had noticed only emerged when he was deep in thought. The kitchen's yellow light cast shadows across his face, making him look older than his 68 years. "Tell me exactly what happened with the officials," he said quietly. Jordyn described each dismissive response, each avoided glance, the carefully constructed wall of bureaucracy that had risen between her and justice. As she spoke, her grandfather's expression grew more focused, like he was seeing something beyond the immediate situation. "They left no evidence," she concluded. "Nothing I could prove, just like Connor planned." Elias stood slowly, joints creaking as he walked to an old cabinet in the corner. He pulled out a small wooden box she'd never seen before, its surface smooth from years of handling. When he returned to the table, his movements were deliberate, almost ceremonial. "There's something I never taught you," he said, opening the box. Inside lay yellowed newspaper clippings, old photographs, and what looked like fight cards from underground matches. Something I hoped you'd never need to know. Jordyn leaned forward as he spread out the items. The photos showed a younger Elias in various fighting stances, but not in any traditional dojo. The venues looked like warehouses, basements, places where official rules held no power. "When systems fail," Elias continued, his voice taking on a teacher's rhythm, "when private injustice hides behind public policies, there's another way, a harder way." He tapped one photo showing him squared off against a much larger opponent. "You have to make them face you where their power doesn't reach, where audience matters more than authority." Jordyn's phone buzzed. A video link appeared in her messages. Someone had uploaded her sparring match with Connor from that first day. His desperate tap-out played in crisp detail. The comments were already multiplying, questioning the tournament's outcome. 300 shares already," she murmured, showing Elias the screen. Another notification popped up, a different kind of video. Connor, clearly celebrating at someone's house, announcing an upcoming event at Iron Forge. His words slurred slightly as he proclaimed an invite-only sparring night to prove who really deserved respect. "No refs, no points," Connor's recorded voice declared. "Just real fighting, unless some people are too scared to show up." The camera panned across his laughing friends before cutting off. Jordyn looked up at her grandfather. His expression had shifted from contemplative to grimly determined. He gave a single sharp nod. "Get your gear," he said, standing. "We start now." The basement lights flickered on, illuminating their private training space. No mirrors, no decorations, just mats and essential equipment. Elias moved with renewed purpose, setting up familiar drills in unfamiliar combinations. "No more holding back," he instructed as Jordyn wrapped her hands. "No more hiding what you can really do. Show me everything." They trained for hours. Each movement was analyzed, refined, stripped of any unnecessary flourish. Elias corrected angles she hadn't known needed adjustment, taught her to read subtle weight shifts that telegraphed intent. When she threw combinations, he demanded they be faster, tighter, more efficient. Again, he'd say after each sequence, "Faster, cleaner, make every second count." Sweat soaked through Jordyn's shirt as midnight approached. Her muscles trembled with fatigue, but her mind felt sharper than ever. She understood now this wasn't about winning a match or earning a belt. This was about confronting corruption in its own arena. During a water break, she checked her phone again. The sparring video had tripled in views. Comments questioned Connor's tournament record, his father's influence, the convenient timing of her disqualification. The truth was spreading like wildfire beyond anyone's ability to control. Elias watched her scroll through the responses. "They create systems to protect themselves," he said, "but systems can't protect them from their own actions being exposed." Jordyn nodded, opening her small notebook. Under Connor's name, written days ago when this all began, she added a single word: "Tomorrow." "One more drill," Elias said, moving back to the center of the mat. "Then we plan." Jordyn stood, muscles aching but mind clear. The basement's harsh lighting cast their shadows large against the wall. Teacher and student, grandfather and granddaughter, preparing for a confrontation that had become inevitable. The clock upstairs struck midnight as they resumed their positions. Each tick echoed the truth they both knew. Tomorrow would change everything, not through official channels or sanctioned matches, but in the raw arena Connor himself had created. Elias's voice cut through her thoughts. Show me the combination again, full speed this time. Jordyn settled into her stance, all hesitation gone. The time for holding back was over. Iron Forge martial arts pulsed with raw energy after hours. The overhead lights cast harsh shadows across the packed crowd. Music thumped through portable speakers, drowning out the whispered bets and excited chatter. The air felt electric, charged with the knowledge that what was about to happen wasn't sanctioned by any official body. Connor Whitaker commanded attention at the center of the mat, his black belt tied with theatrical precision. A group of admirers clustered around him as he gestured, dramatically recreating his tournament victory. She just couldn't handle the pressure, he proclaimed loud enough to carry. Some people aren't cut out for real competition, you know. Laughter rippled through his audience. Marcus Whitaker lingered near his office doorway, maintaining the paper-thin fiction that he wasn't supervising this unauthorized gathering. His presence sent a clear message. Consequences would be selective tonight. Phones recorded everything, their small screens glowing like fireflies in the dimmer corners of the gym. Ryan Knox collected cash from eager spectators, marking down odds in his phone. The temperature seemed to rise with each new arrival, sweat already beading on foreheads despite no one having thrown a single punch. When the front door opened, the entire room shifted. Conversations cut off mid-word as Jordyn Brooks entered. Her grandfather, Elias Brooks's tall frame, following close behind. She carried a small gym bag, her expression neutral as she surveyed the scene. Elias positioned himself against the far wall, his military bearing obvious even in civilian clothes. Connor's laugh pierced the sudden quiet. Well, look who actually showed up. He spread his arms wide, playing to his audience. Come to try your luck again? Or maybe explain that tournament attitude problem? Jordyn said nothing, simply setting her bag down and beginning to stretch. This seemed to irritate Connor more than any response could have. Hey, I'm giving you a chance here, he continued, voice sharpening. A chance to redeem yourself, show everyone what you claim you can do. He glanced at his friends, encouraging their snickers, unless you're scared, without officials to protect you. The crowd pressed closer to the mat, forming an uneven circle. Someone, Ryan probably, clicked the door locks into place. The sound echoed with finality. Marcus Whitaker shifted in his doorway, but said nothing. His silence was permission. Elias Brooks remained motionless against the wall, but his eyes missed nothing. He watched Marcus's positioning, noted which students blocked the exits, tracked every phone aimed at the mat. His expression revealed nothing, but his attention was absolute. No headgear, Connor announced, stripping off his shirt to reveal carefully maintained muscle. No rounds, no points. Submit or get knocked out. That's it. He grinned at Jordyn. Unless that's too rough for you. Jordyn stood, unzipping her hoodie with deliberate calm. Beneath it, she wore a plain black rash guard, her wrists and hands professionally taped. The methodical precision of her preparation seemed to give even Connor pause. I accept those terms, she said quietly, her first words since entering. The clarity of her voice somehow cut through the music and murmurs. More phones emerged from pockets, their camera apps opening like hungry eyes. The music's bass line throbbed through the floor as Connor began bouncing on his toes, throwing performative shadow punches for his audience. Last chance to back out? He taunted, rolling his shoulders. No shame in admitting you're outclassed. Well, maybe a little shame. His followers laughed on cue. Jordyn stepped onto the mat, her movement economical and focused. Gone was any trace of the hesitation she'd shown in previous classes. Her stillness radiated something that made the closest spectators take small steps backward. Connor's grin faltered slightly as she met his gaze. He covered it quickly, playing to the crowd again. "Hey, somebody make sure to get this on video. It's going to be a short show, but a good one." The circle of phones tightened, their lights creating an electronic halo around the mat. Marcus Whitaker crossed his arms, committed now to his role as passive observer. Elias Brooks remained statue still, only his eyes moving as he tracked every detail. "Ready to learn your place?" Connor called out, starting his trademark showboating circuit of the mat. "Don't worry, I'll try to leave you conscious enough to remember the lesson." The music seemed to fade into the background as tension built. Someone started a ragged countdown, voices joining in. 5. Connor bounced higher, playing to his audience. 4. Phones shifted for better angles. 3. Marcus Whitaker's jaw clenched. 2. Elias Brooks's expression hardened. 1. Connor stepped onto the mat with the same cocky grin he'd worn since day one. Jordyn bowed once, a gesture of pure formality. When she straightened, her eyes held none of the uncertainty he'd tried to instill over the past weeks. They were cold, focused, and absolutely clear about what was about to happen. The fight exploded without ceremony. No bell rang, no referee stepped forward, just Connor launching himself across the mat with lethal intent. His first combination came fast and vicious, abandoning any pretense of friendly sparring. Right cross, left hook, knee strike, each blow designed to hurt, to break, to dominate. Several shots connected solidly with Jordyn's ribs and shoulders. The crowd roared approval as Connor pressed forward, his technique precise despite the aggression. Each impact echoed through the gym, punctuated by his supporters' cheers. "Not so tough now, are you?" Connor spat between combinations, sweat already gleaming on his shoulders as he stalked forward. "This isn't your grandfather's basement." Jordyn absorbed the assault without retreating directly back. Each step was measured, angled, maintaining distance without surrendering ground. Her breathing remained steady, even as Connor's strikes found their marks. She moved like water around stone, flowing, redirecting, always in motion. Connor's confidence grew with each landed blow. He started showboating between attacks, playing to his audience, "Come on, fight back." His next combination ended with a spinning kick that whistled past Jordyn's head. Or maybe you only know how to run. The crowd pressed closer, phones recording every moment. Marcus Whitaker's face showed satisfaction at his son's dominance. Only Elias Brooks remained perfectly still, watching without reaction. "Your grandfather teach you to be this pathetic?" Connor launched another blitz of strikes. "No wonder you got thrown out of the tournament." Something shifted in Jordyn's eyes at the mention of her grandfather. When Connor committed to his next punch, overextending slightly, she moved. The counter was brutally efficient. She trapped his extended arm, stepped inside his guard, and executed a perfect hip throw. Connor hit the mat with shocking force, the impact driving air from his lungs. The crowd's cheering cut off like a switch flipped. Connor scrambled to his feet, face flushed with rage and embarrassment. Gone was the performative swagger. Now his eyes held real hatred. He charged forward with a roar, abandoning technique for pure aggression. This time, Jordyn met him head-on. She blocked his wild haymaker and swept his legs in one fluid motion. Connor crashed down again, harder than before. The sound made several spectators flinch. "Stay down," Jordyn said quietly, her first words since the fight began. Connor's response was a snarl as he lurched up again. His next attacks came wild and desperate, hooks that left him open, kicks thrown off balance. Panic started creeping into his expression as Jordyn systematically dismantled his offense. She moved with mechanical precision, never wasting motion. Each time Connor attacked, she stripped away his balance and position. The fight transformed into something ugly and grinding. No flash, no theatrics, just relentless pressure. Blood appeared on Connor's lip from a deflected strike. His breathing turned ragged. Sweat poured down his face as he tried to maintain his assault. But each time he rose, Jordyn put him down again with clinical efficiency. The crowd's enthusiasm died as the one-sided nature of the fight became clear. Phones lowered slightly, their owners uncertain whether they should keep recording. Marcus Whitaker's knuckles whitened as he gripped the doorframe. Connor staggered up once more, his legs shaking visibly now. The realization dawned in his eyes. He wasn't in control anymore. He never had been. His careful image of dominance was crumbling with each passing second. "What's wrong?" Jordyn asked, her voice carrying in the suddenly quiet gym. "I thought this was supposed to be a lesson." Connor's chest heaved as he tried to catch his breath. Gone was the cocky smile, the practiced swagger. His eyes darted around the circle of faces, seeing his carefully constructed reputation dissolving in real time. The mat under their feet was dark with sweat. The music that had been pounding earlier seemed muted and distant now. Every person in the room could feel the momentum shift, the hunter becoming the hunted. Blood dripped from Connor's split lip onto his chest. His shoulders slumped slightly, the first visible sign of fatigue he'd ever shown in this gym. His next breath came as a ragged gasp. The confident champion who had started this fight was gone, replaced by someone who finally understood what real danger felt like. The realization was written clearly across his features. This wasn't a tournament match or a training exercise. This was something else entirely, and he had no idea how to handle it. His whole body trembled with fatigue as he faced the opponent he'd underestimated so badly. Sweat darkened the mat in spreading patterns as Connor and Jordyn circled each other. The crowd pressed closer, their phones casting blue-white glows across tense faces. The air felt thick with anticipation and the metallic tang of fear. Connor's earlier confidence had crumbled into something desperate and dangerous. His chest heaved with each ragged breath. Blood from his split lip leaving crimson droplets on his white gi. His eyes darted wildly, searching for any advantage. Jordyn maintained her measured stance, hands raised in textbook defense. Unlike Connor, her breathing remained controlled, each movement efficient and purposeful. She tracked his increasingly erratic footwork, reading the mounting panic in his posture. "Fight me!" Connor's voice cracked with frustration. He lunged forward with a combination that looked nothing like his usual polished technique. His fists swung wide, telegraphing his intentions. Jordyn slipped the first punch, blocked the second, and redirected his momentum. Connor stumbled, but caught himself, spinning back with fury written across his features. The crowd shifted uneasily, sensing the shift in energy. "Stop running!" Connor's words came out as a snarl. He charged again, this time leading with a kick that Jordyn easily avoided. Marcus Whitaker's face had lost all color as he watched his son unravel. His hands clenched and unclenched at his sides, but he remained rooted in place, unable or unwilling to intervene. The next exchange happened in a blur. Connor, desperate to regain control, threw a wild haymaker. As Jordyn moved to counter, he suddenly drove his knee up, not toward her body, but directly at her face. The illegal strike whistled past her ear as she barely managed to evade. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Even Connor's most devoted supporters shifted uncomfortably. That hadn't been a competition move or even a street fighting technique. It had been a deliberate attempt to cause serious harm. Something changed in the atmosphere. The entertainment factor evaporated, replaced by a heavy tension that made it hard to breathe. Elias Brooks straightened slightly against the wall, his expression hardening, but he made no move to interfere. Jordyn's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. Her stance shifted, subtle adjustments that only trained observers would notice. The measured defense that had characterized her movement transformed into something more focused, more final. Connor mistook her slight repositioning for weakness. He rushed forward, telegraphing another illegal strike. This time, Jordyn didn't evade. She met his charge directly, stepping inside his wild swing. Her hands moved with surgical precision, trapping his extended arm. Before Connor could react, she pivoted sharply, using his own momentum to drive him face first toward the mat. They hit the ground with an impact that made several spectators flinch. Connor tried to roll free, but Jordyn maintained perfect position. She transitioned smoothly into a crushing arm lock, her grip precise and immovable. "Let go." Connor's voice rose in panic as he felt the pressure increase. "Someone stop this." No one moved. His friends, who had cheered so enthusiastically earlier, suddenly found the floor fascinating. Phones continued recording as Connor's bravado crumbled into raw fear. Jordyn adjusted her grip slightly, increasing the pressure just enough to ensure Connor understood his position. It wasn't rage driving her actions, it was pure technique applied with mechanical precision. Connor's free hand slapped the mat frantically. "I tap. I tap." His voice cracked with desperation, tears mixed with sweat on his face as he realized how completely he'd lost control. Jordyn held the submission for one deliberate heartbeat longer. Not enough to cause injury, but enough to imprint the moment in Connor's memory. Then she released him and rolled smoothly to her feet. Connor collapsed onto his stomach, body shaking with harsh sobs. The invincible champion was gone, replaced by a teenager facing his first real defeat. His carefully constructed image of dominance lay in shambles around him. The silence in the gym felt absolute. No one spoke. No one moved. The only sounds were Connor's ragged breathing and the soft whir of phone cameras still recording. "It's all on video," someone whispered from the back of the crowd. "Everything. The whole fight." The whisper rippled through the gathered students. Others nodded, confirming they had captured not just the fight, but Connor's taunts, his illegal strikes, his complete unraveling. Marcus Whitaker's face drained of what little color remained as he processed the implications. His son's actions and his own negligence in allowing this unsanctioned event had been documented from multiple angles. As if underlining the gravity of the situation, distant sirens began to wail outside the gym. Marcus's eyes snapped to the doors he had allowed to be locked, trapping everyone inside this unauthorized gathering. The sound seemed to break the spell, holding the crowd in place. Students shifted nervously, suddenly aware of their participation in something that had spiraled far beyond a simple challenge match. Connor remained on the mat, his sobs quieter now, but his body still trembling. The perfectly styled hair that had been his trademark hung in sweaty strands across his face. His GI, usually pristine, was soaked with sweat and marked with his own blood from his split lip. The sirens grew louder, their wail cutting through the heavy silence. Marcus Whitaker stared at the locked doors with growing dread, understanding that there would be no easy way to explain this situation to the authorities. Blue and red lights strobed through the gym windows, casting eerie shadows across the stunned faces of the gathered students. The wail of sirens died out, replaced by the crunch of boots on gravel and sharp, authoritative knocks on the locked doors. Marcus Whitaker fumbled with his keys, hands shaking as he approached the entrance. The metal rattled against the lock before he managed to turn it. The doors swung open, revealing 3 police officers with stern expressions and hands resting near their belts. "What's going on here?" the lead officer demanded, taking in the scene: the crowded gym, the disheveled mat, Connor still crumpled on the ground. Students pressed themselves against the walls, phones still recording despite nervous glances. No one spoke until one of Connor's former friends stepped forward, screen already extended to show the footage. "It was an illegal fight club," he said, voice trembling. "Mr. Whitaker let his son organize it after hours." Marcus's face went ash white. I didn't." "We have it all on video." Another student called out. More phones appeared, screens lighting up with damning evidence, the whole thing and everything before too. The officers split up, one moving to check on Connor, another speaking into his radio for medical assistance while the lead officer cornered Marcus. "Sir, I'm going to need you to explain why you've got minors locked in here for unsanctioned fighting." Connor's sobs had quieted to hiccups as the medical officer helped him sit up. His face was a mess of tears, sweat, and smeared blood from his split lip. The perfect hair, the confident swagger, the untouchable aura, all of it gone, replaced by a scared teenager facing real consequences for the first time. It wasn't supposed to. Connor started, then stopped as his father shot him a warning look. But the dam had broken. Students began speaking up, voices overlapping. "He's been bullying people for months. The tournament was rigged. They vandalized her locker. Coach Harlan knew about everything." Coach Harlan, who had been trying to blend into the background, found himself suddenly the focus of multiple stares. He looked between Marcus's thunderous expression and the questioning faces of the officers before his shoulders sagged. "I should have said something sooner," he admitted, voice heavy with shame. There was pressure to favor certain students, to look the other way when rules were broken. Connor's behavior, the tournament discrimination, tonight's event. None of it should have happened. The lead officer's expression darkened as she made notes. "We'll need statements from everyone. Nobody leaves until we've got contact information." In the corner, students were already sharing videos through every social platform they could access. The footage spread like wildfire. Connor's original humbling tap-out, the tournament sabotage accusations, and now the brutal exposure of his true character in the unsanctioned fight. Within minutes, phones throughout the gym buzzed with notifications as the videos gained traction. Someone muttered that Iron Forge's main sponsor had already seen the footage and was pulling their support. Marcus Whitaker watched his empire crumbling in real time as his phone exploded with messages from the gym's board members. His face cycled through anger, fear, and finally resignation. As he was led aside for questioning, paramedics arrived to check Connor over, though his injuries were more to his ego than his body. As they helped him onto a stretcher, his eyes locked onto Jordyn for the first time since the fight ended. There was no anger left, no defiance, just the hollow recognition of someone who finally understood how thoroughly he'd been outmatched. Through it all, Jordyn stood quietly beside her grandfather, giving her statement when asked, but otherwise remaining still. She watched as Connor was escorted out, as Marcus was questioned, as students who had once laughed at his jokes now eagerly testified against him. Hours later, After statements were taken and the crowd had dispersed, Jordyn sat at her kitchen table. Her phone lit up constantly with messages, former victims sharing their stories, students apologizing for their silence, others expressing fear about the gym's future. Elias walked over and gently took the phone from her hands, powering it off. "That's enough for tonight," he said softly. "This part is finished." Jordyn looked down at her hands. Bruises were forming across her knuckles, not from the fight itself, but from the precision with which she'd had to control every movement. They were the marks of someone who had chosen restraint, even when it wasn't deserved. "I didn't want to destroy everything," she said quietly. "You didn't," Elias replied. "You just showed everyone what was already broken. Sometimes that's the harder fight. Not throwing the punch, but making people see why it was necessary." Jordyn nodded slowly, then reached for the small notebook she'd been carrying since that first day. The page with Connor's name was worn from being opened and closed so many times. She studied it for a long moment, remembering each incident, each subtle cruelty, each moment of institutional failure that had led to tonight. The notebook sat open before her, its pages containing a careful record of systematic abuse finally exposed to the light. Each entry represented not just Connor's actions, but the broader failure of those who should have protected their students instead of their reputation. Sunlight streamed through the high windows of the community recreation center, casting long rectangles of warmth across the worn, blue mats. The space was simple. No mirrors, no promotional posters, no rack of colored belts marking achievement levels. Just clean floors, basic equipment, and room to move. Jordyn Brooks stood at the front of the class, her posture relaxed but attentive as she watched her students stretch. There were about 15 of them, ranging from 13 to 18 years old. Some wore traditional GIs, others comfortable workout clothes. What united them was their focused silence. No chatter, no phones, no performative energy. "Remember to breathe," Jordyn said softly, her voice carrying easily in the quiet room. "Focus on your center. Ground yourself before we begin." In the corner, Elias Brooks sat in a metal folding chair, his weathered hands resting on his cane. His eyes moved carefully over each student, noting their form, their attention, their progress. But he didn't interrupt or correct. This was Jordyn's space. "Now partner up," Jordyn instructed. "We'll work on breaking grips today. The goal isn't to overpower, it's to understand leverage, to recognize when someone is off balance, to use their momentum instead of forcing your own." The students paired off naturally without the jostling or avoiding that had been common at Iron Forge. A tall girl named Maya worked with a shorter boy named David. Neither seemed concerned about size difference or status. They simply focused on the technique. "Start slow," Jordyn demonstrated with a volunteer. "Feel how your partner's weight shifts. Notice the spaces they leave open. Don't exploit them yet. Just observe." Elias's expression softened as he watched his granddaughter teach. Her voice carried the same quiet authority he'd tried to instill, but she'd made it entirely her own. Where he had taught her survival, she was teaching awareness. Where he had shown her power, she was showing them control. The morning light crept across the floor as the class progressed. Students moved through drills with increasing confidence. But there was no showboating, no aggressive testing of limits. When someone struggled, their partner slowed down. When someone succeeded, the victory was acknowledged with focus rather than celebration. "Remember," Jordyn said as she moved between pairs, adjusting grips and stances with gentle precision, "power isn't about domination. It's about understanding yourself, your opponent, the space between action and reaction." A younger student raised her hand. But what if someone really wants to hurt us? Jordyn nodded, acknowledging the serious question. Then you'll be prepared. Not because you learned flashy moves or earned colored belts, but because you understand fundamentals, because you've trained your awareness, because you know the difference between a threat and a challenge. The class continued its work. The room filled with the soft sounds of movement and controlled breathing. There were no spectators here, no phones recording for social media, no politics masquerading as tradition, just learning, pure and purposeful. As the session wound down, students helped each other clean the mats and put away equipment. There was no rush to leave, no immediate reaching for phones. The discipline they showed wasn't forced. It had been earned through understanding rather than fear. A young girl named Sarah approached Jordyn as others gathered their bags. "My friend at school said you're famous," she said hesitantly, "because of what happened at that other place." Jordyn's smile was gentle but firm. "No, I'm not famous," she replied. "I was just prepared, and now I'm helping others prepare too." Sarah nodded, seeming to understand something deeper than the simple answer. As the students filed out, thanking both Jordyn and Elias, the morning sun had climbed higher. The light now filled the room completely, erasing shadows, illuminating the simple dignity of the space. Elias stood slowly, his cane tapping softly on the floor. "Good class," he said quietly. Jordyn began her final checks of the room, ensuring windows were secured, equipment stored properly, floors clean. The routine was meditative, purposeful. This space might be simpler than Iron Forge had been, but it held something far more valuable than expensive equipment or shiny trophies. She picked up her small gym bag, the same one she'd carried that first day at Iron Forge. But now it felt lighter somehow, unburdened by the need to prove anything to anyone. "Ready?" Elias asked, holding the door. Outside, the morning air was crisp and clean. The recreation center's brick walls glowed warm in the sunlight. A new group of students was arriving for basketball practice, their energy bright but contained. Jordyn stepped into the morning light, her shoulders straight but relaxed, her movements easy and confident. There was no need to look back at the room, no need to check for watching eyes or whispered comments. The space would be there tomorrow and the day after, ready for those who came to learn rather than dominate. She walked forward, matching her pace to her grandfather's, neither hurrying nor hesitating. The lesson was complete, the fight finished. But the teaching, the real teaching, was just beginning. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like to support my channel and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. On the screen, I have picked 2 special stories just for you. Have a wonderful day.